Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to our third edition of our office hours. Let me know if you can hear me correctly. We will take a few minutes to let everyone in. We have 73 attendees right now. I'm sure there's a few more who are going to join us in a few minutes. We have a very exciting agenda for today. In a few minutes, I will be introducing you our guest today, and as you can see, we are going to be talking about railroad crossings. Good morning to everyone. I just wanted to remind everyone to write your questions and add them at the Q&A tab and not at the chat. And today we're going to be, after the last session success, we're going to be testing something else. We will be, as always, answering your questions live. For that, it's important that you write them, as I said, in the Q&A tab. But any questions which are not directly related with railroad crossings, our amazing community team is going to be answering them live in writing. So you might see them in a different tab as answered. And we are going to be sending a transcript of those of the answers to those questions as part of our follow-up. And as you can see, we have someone else here today. Some of you are familiar face. His name is Veg. Some of you might know him from one of the meetups that he really enjoys attending to. Something that I forgot before we started, that we are recording this webinar for those of you who the time is not the most suitable. So don't worry about that. Also, if you're having internet issues, as all of us, I guess, do these days in this new reality. So don't worry, we are going to be recording this webinar, and we will be sending it as part of the follow-up. But without further ado, I would like to introduce to all of you to Fej. He's amazing, and he's been in charge of the railroad crossing feature, which is a feature that we have been expecting for really long. So we look forward to for his presentation now.
Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I hope you can hear me well. As Mauro already said, I'm really delighted to be here. It's been a long time since I've seen some of you. And unfortunately, it seems with the current situation with traveling, it's going to be definitely a while since we will meet face to face, but I'd be very happy to go to the first global or regional meetup and meet you again. Today we decided to focus on the railroad crossing. It's something that we know that was requested, and I have in one of the next slides an example. It's been requested a long time, and I think that now that we are finally there, it's definitely a starting point. I think at the end of the day, when we look at the various information that we provide hazard alerts on, definitely there's still a way to go. But I hope that this is something that kind of signals out 2020 and we can improve with our coverage. So a bit about the feature background. And this is my example. You can see this is from 2010, if I'm not, it's so small that I can't even see it. 2011, July 2011, requesting in the forum the railroad crossings. I think that internally we also had it in one of the original MRDs of Waze at the time as part of the long-term roadmap. And so we can see that, finally, after 9 years, more or less, we are ready to go. So never give up. I think that if we look at the way that it's implemented, we wanted to make it as close as possible to existing alerts, because we have ability to reuse some of the code and make it more easier to manage and easier to develop. So we started to do it based on the fake speed camera functionality, which you see here, what we call the dummy speed camera. And one of the reasons that we did that was because of the need to be able to use the same code that existed in older clients. There's always an issue when you come up with new information and new alerts and new functionality, keeping it backward compatible to the old clients. And in this case, the way to do it was something that would not crash the old clients, was based on the dummy speed cameras. Otherwise, it would have required a whole new infrastructure to support this new alert and combine it with the older alerts. So from your point of view, there is now in the editor a new client. You can see it here. It's, again, similar in the kind of look and feel as the dummy speed camera, but it is the railroad crossing. There's no speed, there's nothing associated with it. It's just an indication based on the travel direction of, I would say, a road type indicator, which is the railroad crossing. It is duplicated so that we are covering both travel directions, since speed camera originally has a direction associated with it. So we have two of them, which is applicable in most of the cases. And it's providing alert in both navigation mode and roaming mode, so that the alert, very much, again, like speed cameras and then some of the other incident hazards, provides you the functionality whenever you're using the application, again, in roaming mode, meaning without a navigation or a destination, or in actual navigation. A bit about the client side. Very similar to the, I would say, the standard alerts that we have. It's 500 meters. Right now, there's still a bit of an issue with the TTS. It currently provides like a glink, but there's supposed to be a TTS indicating a railroad crossing ahead, so that it's both visually on the map as well as verbally, so that the user can see it. And you have the icons, which are a bit different here. It's a railroad crossing icon, very similar to what you see in the title, the 40 meters title. So that actually, again, it behaves like a normal alert. Very similar look and feel, nothing that is going to be surprising to the user, more or less maintaining the same functionality, but just, again, a new item, a new crossing. In addition, we have the setting that enables to actually control the notifications, so that those that have standard routes and are used to seeing the railroad crossing and do not want it, just like they do not want any other alert, they can disable this, again, in the same usual manner, same functionality. For old clients, there will be no alert, there will be nothing. It will look like a dummy speed camera, as you can see here. This is from Israel, where they are more common. But I assume that this exists, and I know that it exists in some countries. I'm not sure how often it is. In countries where there's no dummy camera, we might get some feedback from users indicating they're not understanding why there is a camera when there's no camera, or when there's a camera when they actually see a railroad crossing. The solution for that would be to upgrade the release. Overall, I think that as much as possible, we should strive that the users will update the releases to support the new functionalities. This is, again, part of the, I would say, the safety package that we have in Waze. Definitely an important hazard to alert about. This is something that, had we not had right now the situation with the corona, we would have publicized it more, because this is something that a lot of local governments and municipalities and other safety related, I would say, organizations are very much in favor. There have been a lot of accidents, unfortunately also here, with buses and cars that were crossing the railroad crossing and got hit by a train. And so again, right now it's not the time to do any PR, etc. We hope to do it later, but the feature right now is open, is available, both on the editor and the client. And again, people that would upgrade the client will see this new functionality. Just a bit about the coverage. We spent the time with the assistance of the community to map the clients, map the railroad crossing based on information that we got from official sources, whether it in the US, where we got 120,000 railroad crossing locations, France, which is in the yellow, where we had 17,000, Canada, 14,000, and the community in Israel managed to cover the about 100 that we have. Unfortunately, it's so small you can't see the orange, but overall these four communities right now are, or those four countries are covered right now, and the users that are driving or starting to drive based on the restrictions that exist now for the corona will be able to see it. Okay, I see that New Zealand has been done, UK has been done. Great. This is part of the effort, and where we can get, by the way, information from official sources. If, of course, the bigger the country, like United States, the better it is. But it could very well be that in most countries, most of the places, I see Moldova as well, most of the places are relatively easy to cover, especially since in a lot of cases, there's a lot of effort done by the railroad companies so that there will be minimal amount of crossings between the railroad and the actual road. This is something that obviously is solved with, underpasses or bridges. But overall, it's very, very important that we have it and provide it as part of the package. DR, Hungary is done. Okay, I see. Very well. So maybe the whole thing is covered. I do hope that some of the other countries, some of the other communities are able to increase the coverage, and I will be, of course, very happy to update the map, and so that we have a global coverage all around. I think that on the editor side, there was work done to coordinate and again populate it as part of the map tiles. It does not yet exist in the live map, but on the client side it should be okay. And if you encounter any issues, whether with the client or whether with the editor, we are still now, I would say, anticipating to get the input. Again, the TTS is something that we are aware of. There might be situations, and there are some cities in the US where there are still a lot of railroad crossings that are crossing roads, especially when there's a a very, very big center of trains. And this is something that we're also looking into to see how we can decrease the number of railroad crossings that are shown at the same time. Usually it should be okay, again, very much like a speed camera or other reports. But in case there is a lot of information, it might be something that will be a bit overwhelming on the display. And again, we're looking to see how we can, again, reduce the clutter, I would say, in a sense. And I think that in this case, once we are able to do it, we will probably show the ones that are relevant. There is probably an ability to show only in one direction, so that instead of seeing duplicates, you will see one. Again, this is something that we are investigating right now to see what we can do, especially as again, we are supposed to be backward compatible and not harm the old clients. This is, okay, Dominican Republic. I was wondering what DR was. So Dominican Republic is covered as well. Excellent. This is more or less it. It's been a feature that, again, took a while to push into the process, especially to see that there were no bugs or crashes in the old clients. So the longest time was to find the exact way to do it. And I do hope that this is something that, saves life at the end of the day. And that's more or less from my side. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
All right. So we have some questions. So we're going to move to the Q&A section. Please, guys, do not stop upvoting. We are going to try to go over all of the questions that we have, but just it's going to make it easier for us if you don't upvote. So we have the first question, which is from Thomas. What about audio warning? Right now, it's easy to omit the warning as it's just a quiet beep.
The quiet beep was supposed to be a text-to-speech saying railroad crossing ahead. Unfortunately, for some reason, it's not working. And right now, R&D are looking into it to see how this can be resolved, because obviously for the alerts, we do have the text-to-speech. It might be, again, for older clients where there is a fixed alerts and there's no text-to-speech. This is something that might be more complicated, so then you need to record the specific warning. But for text-to-speech, it should be covered in most of the cases.
Question from Lucas. 500 meters for the alert to happen before crossing is too much in highly urbanized areas. Maybe the alert can pop up based on the speed of the driving is moving.
We can look into it, but in most cases, it's less speed related. So it might be that more dense population area, we need to think maybe on the type of the road, but there is no cases where you are going 100 kilometers an hour and suddenly you hit a crossing. This is something that usually is done in very low speed areas. So maybe again we need to see about alert being a bit not 500, but traditionally we wanted to do it to 500 so that people get an understanding, at least get the warning and be prepared, because at the end of the day the visual side and the actual crossing is something that is what the user should pay attention to. Again, we can look into it and see if we can do some kind of improvement. 500 on a freeway, again, we're not familiar, and again, if there are examples that are 500 meters on a freeway, then this is something we need to know, because again, this is super dangerous. And I mean, let's think today that when there is no warning, how are they warning about it? We're now the first one that are adding it. If there are places where people are going 100 kilometers an hour and have to stop in front of a railroad crossing, and again, there's no warning today, I'd be a bit alarmed, I would say, even. And again, from the tests and what we saw, it's usually on more of side roads, street level, not hardly ever on Main Street. And if it's on Main Street, it's usually right after a traffic light and things like that. But we can see if we can do something better about it.
Next question is from Mike. Railway crossings really clutter the map in some areas. Is there a plan to reduce the distance they display on the map, on the app?
The plan, since the mechanism is an existing mechanism and using the speed camera, which is always shown once it's on the tile, we are looking to see what we can do to reduce it, whether to half it by showing only one out of the two, whether it is something that we can do more and have those that are relevant for your route be shown. But it's something that, again, on the original test that we did, we didn't see it as an issue, but we saw that in some cities where there are massive train stations, central train stations that are actually then allowing the railroad to cross a lot of streets, this is something that is an issue. And again, we're looking into it. This and the TTS is something that is being reviewed right now.
Mm-hmm. Question from Eric. Willing and Mike request would be solved with speed-based alerts. We spoke a little bit about it, just if you want to add anything. 500 meters on surface street is often 2 or 3 turns and a couple of minutes ahead, while 500 on a freeway can possibly be too late.
So we said that, again, usually the speed that people are reaching a railroad crossing is, I don't know, 40 kilometers an hour, maybe 50, but it's very rare. And in most cases, if it's a higher speed, there is a bridge or an underpass, because otherwise it's a really, really dangerous hazard when you're speeding. So if there are examples on the freeway, I'd be happy to receive it so that we can look into it. But right now, at least, we didn't do it based on speed because we didn't see it. We didn't see it as an issue.
Mm-hmm. Next question is from Leith. Any chance you can add other types of vehicles like emergency services?
So, emergency service is something, again, I have on my wish list since I don't know when, 2010 or so. The problem is that, at least right now, the architecture of Waze is based on static locations. So we can provide an alert on a static location, which is fixed, which is always there. Even the police or the accident reports or incidents are fixed. At the end of the day, they don't move. Emergency vehicles and similar such, I would say, transport-related information, when it moves, we are not geared to support it. The update to the client is done every 1.5 minutes, even 2. It could be traveling in various directions, and we then have to try to estimate it. And it could be very well be that, by the time you get the alert, the ambulance has passed you, or that it didn't pass you because it's going to pass you in, I don't know, 2 minutes, and we did the wrong estimation. So dynamic moving alert is something that is right now not possible to support. And again, ambulances could be bicycle drivers, could be even police, even if they, share their location. We did something about more or less showing garbage trucks, but that was only visible. So you see the trucks on the map because they're moving very slow, and then you can make an educated decision of whether you want to enter a street when there's a garbage truck. But that was as far as we went, and again, emergency is very complicated.
Mm-hmm. Questions question from Ricardo. Can you confirm that adding, removing an RRC doesn't force an update on that map tile as cameras don't?
That's a good question. I have a feeling that both of them do, but this is something that perhaps someone from the editor team can answer.
All right.
I'm aware that cameras do force an update of the tile. So I can confirm.
I'm keeping it aside so that we can verify it and we can follow up with that with them. I'm marking them and we will send them as part of the follow-up, Ricardo. Ian, can CDNA be made case sensitive? I'm not sure if this is connected to railway crossings or not. Dalia, hi.
Hi, I thought I might be good to answer this one. As I understand it, and please correct me in chat if I'm wrong, this is so you can avoid adding by accident a duplicate city that is just misspelled a little bit by using a lowercase or uppercase. We can definitely check that, and let's add that to our follow-up list to see if we can add that to WME validation.
All right, thank you. Next up is from Alex. We are experiencing difficulties when there are RRCs on multiple level roads. Any chance we can get a solution? Maybe allow the RRC to have an elevation set or ignore RRCs when on a segment not set on ground level.
Interesting. I would need an example. At least right now, I was not aware of the issue. And it might very well be that, if it's not ground level, then we ignore it, which makes sense. But this is something new, so we need a bit more information, and then I can check with R&D what can be done about it.
Okay. Another question from Lee. Any chance to be able to have a report system like hazards and roadworks in the editor?
It's not directly related, I think, to railroad crossing, but I'll take a shot, and Dalia can correct me. This is something that was thought about, but at least right now, the editor is geared on the tiles, on the information that goes into the map, and the temporary, I would say, the hazards and roadwork, which are kind of on and off real-time related information, today is not available on the map editor. Again, I know that there were discussions about populating real-time information into the map, but it's definitely a development and not a trivial one, especially because it might be able to be confusing. I'm not aware of the actual kind of plans or anything that is set already in that relation. But maybe, I don't know, Dalia knows.
No, I can only agree and support what Fesh said. I think it's really important also to make a good distinction between information that is valuable, permanently, such as railroad crossings that aren't likely to be moved over the coming months or years, whereas we have hazard alerts that some of them might disappear really fast. For example, a traffic jam or a specific object that is on the road might disappear within a short period of time. And that makes more sense to have it in real time in the app, and we're trying to add more permanent hazards to the editor. But hope that helps answer the question.
Next, another question from Lee. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. When will the required edit level be lower to be able to add RRC? I believe that, correct me if I'm wrong, but that depends on the community, each community coordinators who can basically define that. So we encourage you to be in touch with your community leadership so that they can check if it's possible to lower this to a lower level.
Just one comment
Next
is
question.
that just one comment. In most cases, once the mapping is done, and again, Dominican Republic or Israel or Hungary, etc., there's not much to do. And in this case, and again, I assume this is part of the thought process of the community. The question is if there is any point in lowering it. Yes, it opens opportunity maybe for someone to do an edit on something that is wrong. On the other hand, there's always a risk that opening it too much might also flood a lot of mistakes, duplicates, and things like that. So it's not something that is going to change once it's mapped, or let's say change very often. It's very, very static. This is why it's I would say, a local decision in a sense.
Thank you. Next question is from Aaron. I live in a city with dozens of our railroad crossings. Sometime in the span of a quarter of a mile, you may cross 2 or 3 crossings on a state highway. I'll be concerned about over alerting drivers in this case. If there's a lot of crossings, they can be condensed into an alert that says multiple crossings ahead or
we need to look into it. I'd be happy to get the example and then see with R&D what we can do. We don't have today an alert on multiple. So it's just like, speed cameras. We don't have multiple speed cameras. And if it's, let's say, maybe the equivalent is like a speed zone, it has to be mapped differently. I'm not sure how optimistic I am on this, but it could be that we can do something related to, I don't know, maybe not doing the same alert within X distance or Y minutes or whatever. Right now, it's something that we don't have, and we'll have to see if this is something that we can do. And again, the issue is being backward compatible, so that we don't run into issues with all the clients.
Thank you. Next question from Andre. What distant railways crossing from the roads need for notification, and what is the angle relative to the road?
The angle is basically aligning the railroad crossing with the railroad. So in the icon that is like this, this is the road and this is the railroad and this is the railroad. So once you align them, the application is able to provide the alert. How much physically they have to be near the road, or let's say near the railroad itself, I'm not aware of a specific value. We usually took, I think, 10, 20 meters or something like that, something that was very similar to the distance of the actual, I would say, crossing from the road, but again, without covering the road completely. So in most cases, I think the direction is the one that comes into play. I'm not aware of a specific distance from the road that would disable it from being shown. It might be an issue that needs to be checked. And again, maybe if there's someone from the editor team, they can provide some information, but I'm not aware of some limit.
Right. Next question is from Mohammed. Now Waze is owned by Google. Why it doesn't have Google's traffic date to know the exact time to arrive based on the huge Google Maps base of users?
So first of all, I assume you're meaning traffic data. The Google algorithm and the Waze algorithm work differently. Google's information are reliant on Android users. They are actually getting the information from devices, and their issue is to filter out those that are not driving, whereas Waze is very much oriented and based on the actual users using Waze while driving. So Google Maps, you can do it while walking, you can do it by bicycling, you can do it in various ways. And so while we do get some of the information, it's different systems, different algorithms, different basis of calculation, and this is why we have our own methodology.
Next up is David. It is really necessary to put 2 railway crossings point, 1 for each direction. I think with 1 for both directions is enough.
I completely agree. Unfortunately, the mechanism that we used here was the speed camera, which is directional. And so like in cases where you have a intersection with 4 red light speed cameras and you need to put 4, the same thing is here. Again, the idea in the client is that we perhaps show only 1 out of the 2, but right now, at least functionality-wise, we need to put both of these cameras to cover both travel directions when crossing the railroad.
Mm-hmm. Next question from Ian. If not possible to change warning distance based on drive speed, can it be set according to the speed limit on the road? This is also something on speed and red light cameras.
So I think red light cameras, I don't remember, do they have speed or not? No, I think red light cameras, we said this is a static warning that is not related to speed because we do not want people crossing the intersection, and they can do it in 10 kilometers an hour, they can do it in 50. Again, the issue of the distance is something that we have to look into. I'm not sure how the mechanism goes related to speed, but we'll have to see if this is something that we can add here, because again, this has been raised several times. I'm not sure what it means client development wise. We will look into it.
All right. Next up is John. Referencing distance of the warning, 500 meters or higher speed roads is not as much as a concern as having the warning 500 in advance on a slower speed road. When you have been given a warning way too far in advance when going slower speed, it will be more annoying than helpful. When you have to cross 10 cross lights before the actual crossing is the issue.
Okay, again, we will look into the distance. Right now, I don't have any kind of rabbit in the hat or up my sleeve, but we'll see if perhaps we can do, I don't know, maybe 2 distances. And again, it depends if it exists, and it depends if this is something that is not causing an issue with all the clients. Again, the issue is being here back with compatible. If we can have maybe 2 distances, or something like that, let's say up to, I don't know, 30 or 40 kilometers an hour and above, we'll try to look into it.
Okay. Another question from Ian. Currently, if 2 cameras are too close together, only 1 will be verbally announced. As railway crossings are modified cameras, how will these work if there's a speed or red light camera on the crossing and both need to be audible warnings?
Good question, but it kind of contradicts what was said before, where we'll say, you know, multiple, instead of saying 2 or 3 announcements, we'll say just once. I'm not sure what happens for speed and red light cameras, and I think that in most cases, apparently, since we did not encounter this question before, then there are no consecutive or very close speed and red light cameras. So I suspect this is something more related to railroad crossing and cases, again, where there are big stations with a lot of roads that are being crossed by the railroad. And again, we'll have to see. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't want too many announcements. On the other hand, I don't want to, miss announcements and then, as users get accustomed to getting the alerts, sometimes when they don't get it, they are overwhelmed with surprise because they expect Waze to do everything. So again, let's remember that yesterday, or not yesterday, but recently we didn't have any alerts. So now let's see how we deal with these alerts and see, the reception, and then make more educated decisions.
Thank you. Next question is from William. Can there be an additional small alert or ping when you're very close to the crossing? The alert giving half a mile away may have been some minutes ago if you stopped at a traffic light, for instance.
So today the mechanism doesn't allow two alerts on same static location. But I think that, again, as we discuss the distance, we will see maybe to make it closer. In any case, the issue is to create the driver awareness. Just like police ahead and you're stuck in a traffic jam because it's police ahead, and again, maybe an accident, etc., it will be time until you arrive there. As a starting point, it remains on the display until you cross it. So there is at least the visual information. And again, the idea is to create the awareness so that drivers make less mistakes in that case.
Question from Victor from Chile. Alert icons overlap in the app. Should we put both directions warning also overlapped in the WME just to see only one in the app?
So we are looking to, again, as part of the improvement, to show less. We're trying to see if we can show the one that is relevant to your travel direction. Hopefully we can do that, and then you won't see two, but you'll see only one.
Thank you. And guys, please do not upvote. We agreed upon that. Question from Lost in My Maps. Now Waze is reusing the camera code. When will Waze look into introducing new camera types other than red, speed, and dummy?
Good question. I'm not aware entirely of what the product team is planning. I know we do have in France at least, the enforcement zone when we can't show a specific camera. And I think that in some cases, in some countries, we have the average speed camera as well, where you have a camera where you start crossing, and at the end, and at the end the average speed is calculated. So then the warning is usually don't go over speed. I'm not aware of other type of cameras, and maybe they are. And this is something that has to be taken with product. Again, I'm not aware of specific plans.
Thank you. Question from Stephen. In the editor, is it possible to place the RRC either on the road or on the side? Does the app show the RRC to the side if it was placed there in the editor?
I don't think that you need it on the road itself. Again, the idea is that you have two. One of them is in the travel direction of one of the travel direction, and the other one is on the other side. You need the two, and it doesn't have to be exactly on the road. It could be, again, to the side. I'm not sure how much it is, but I know it's definitely meters, enough information, just like speed cameras. I think 10 meters, maybe 20 meters again. We will need someone from the editor to confirm it, but I think that, again, you can put it to the side amount so that it doesn't cover the road. And if you want, you can just kind of, play with it and do a test even to see the limitation. It might be even quicker than something that perhaps even the editor team is not aware.
Next question, backwards compatibility in older clients was mentioned. What is the distribution of client versions routinely seen?
We still have some Blackberries and Nokias, that I can tell you, but it's in the several thousand. I'm not sure, but people don't, in contrast to most of you and most of the folks that are, more engaged with either the mapping or beta team or the kind, a lot of people, can do it once in even several months. I'm not sure exactly of the distribution. Obviously, most of them are I would say, updated to the last, let's say, several months. But yes, there is an amount that are still, with the version that they initially installed when they downloaded Waze a while ago, and which is exactly why, as part of implementing some of the features, the issue of PR and the I would say the marketing is important, because when people read in the newspaper about a new feature, about, let's say, the railroad crossing, and understand that this is something that is associated with a newer version, then they are upgrading it. But I don't have the numbers, definitely not in the top of my head of the exact distribution, but let's say there would be enough crashes if we were not backward compatible. We would hear about it.
Thank you. Question from Dave. What is the live date for regular users?
I'm not sure I understand the question. What do you mean
I think the
regular?
question was asking if it's already visible to users, if it's already in production.
Oh, yes. It's open. It's open in production.
Question from Roy, and we are getting towards the end. Actually, in Canada, there are many crossings at 80 kilometers per hour, some at 90, and a few at 100. So that's some feedback that you were asking.
Scary. So I'm wondering, it would be interesting case, how long or how much in advance is the driver being made aware that there is a crossing? Driving 100 kilometers an hour, it can't be a surprise when I see the lights and that's it. So I'm wondering, again, from real life, to understand how much ahead the information is provided, because that can give us perhaps some kind of a sense of what we should do as well. But this is scary.
What I would like to do is to encourage everyone to contact their community manager about these specific cases, and we'll make sure that that Fetch is provided with this information. Question from Lance. We see a number of crossings in rural areas in the US that are on 50 to 65
Yeah, it's the same question actually. It's
our speed limit roads.
Yeah, so it's the same issue. I'd be happy to understand how much in advance the warnings are provided, because again, this is a tough scenario where you're driving and seeing that, especially as in the rural areas. In a lot of cases, there are no lights and separators, so you actually are just going full speed ahead and crossing the actual railroad, and again, without any limitation. So I'd be happy to understand, again, the distance at least.
Another question from Alan. Ian's question about RRC and SC is also applicable to a combination of SC and RLC at some location. You currently only get one, no, not both, the same pole for both devices.
So this is I mean, speed cameras and red light camera, I think there's an issue of priority, and I think that in this case we usually put the speed camera ahead. Again, we can't multiple if we can't provide a multiple alert on the same pole. So I think that this is something that the community can decide if they are thinking that perhaps the red light camera is more important than the speed camera, to just remove the speed camera and just leave the red light camera, and then they will get the right warning that they think is applicable. But this is something I don't see how we can solve. We don't have a combination where we don't have the architecture to support two cameras or two warnings of different kinds at the same location. This is something that doesn't exist.
No. And last question from Gil. There are actually it's not a question, but like there are early warning signs on faster crossings in the US.
So I'm interested to know how early. What's the definition in this case of early? What's the distance before? Because again, if it's, let's say, I'm exaggerating, a mile, then obviously we're coming to the same scenario before, where by a mile it's theoretically so far away that you might not know about it. If it's a mile, then half a mile, then 100 yards before, then this is something that we'll have to decide on one warning. And again, the assumption is that at the end of the day, the driver is aware and looking at the signs, and Waze is an add-on. Waze is not cannot be relied as the only source of information on which the driver acts. So we'll have to decide on some distance that makes sense for both cases, for these early warnings and the rural and these high-speed areas, and decide maybe on the right distance.
All right, so we're done for today's session. But before we're over, I would like to thank so much Fej for joining us here, and also, of course, Dalia for helping us with the Q&A. Just a few things that I would like to, before you go, for you to know before you go. So first of all, don't leave just yet, because we have a survey for you at the end of this webinar. Just stay on the same tab. The second thing that I wanted to mention is that, as you can see, we have increased tentatively the frequency of office hours, because we have like a lot of new stuff happening and new things that we want to share with you and to get to your feedback. So that's really important. Please keep sending us your feedback as you're doing constantly, of new topics, about the frequency, about the quality of these events. It's really important for us to be in touch with you during these awkward times. And Fitch, do you have any last words before we end the webinar?
Keep safe and healthy. That's, I think, the most important thing I can say right now. Really, take care, and I hope that everything passes away, and again, we can meet, and that you and your families again are safe and healthy.
Agree. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day, and see you guys in the next Office Hours edition. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.